I gotta give a shout out to my boy Roderick. This man has fought demonic tigers, a sea god, a variety of monsters, and even though he's still freaked out, what does he do? He pulls out his sword and he gets ready to get down to business. Roderick is my hero. Before we get started, quick shout out to a supporter of mine, Harrison. Go check out his Instagram and other links down below. He makes these great anime and manga inspired shirts. He made me these badass Berserk and Vinland Saga shirts, and particularly like this one because it makes me look a little bit more jacked than I actually am. Anyway, this is some of his artwork, and it looks really, really cool. Definitely go check him out. Give him a follow on Instagram. Lots of variety, even beyond anime and manga, going into movies, TV shows, horror stuff. So really, really cool stuff. Give him some love, and tell him Ryan sent you. So, Rakshas is back, but probably more surprising than to anybody else, Rakshas himself is surprised. That's one of the more interesting aspects about this chapter, actually. But first, I want to shout out this page right here with Rakshas, just the floating cloak and the tentacle-like appendages coming out of it. I just think it looks so cool. It looks haunting. It looks atmospheric. He looks like a floating creature you would fight in Devil May Cry or something like that. I always thought Rakshas was one of the coolest designed apostles, and this chapter definitely showcases that. We all know at this point this is all Studio Gaga and no longer in Miora's hands, and for what it's worth, I do think the artwork is pretty good, although there are some kind of wonky faces during this chapter, but overall, I don't really care too much about that. It's conveying the story very well, and I think images like this more than enough make up for it, so I'm okay for the artwork in this chapter. Now, at the ending of the last chapter, which shockingly was only 2 weeks ago that we got, everybody was sitting around the Kurulatai in order to discuss and plan about what their next course of action would be going up against the Hawk of Light, aka Griffith. And as they did, one man started to freak out, and then bursting out of the shadows of his body or from inside of his body. This chapter makes it look like it was more of the shadows, but I kind of just wish that Rakshas was like inside of the dude's body literally and burst out. But that looks like it might not be the case here, because as Rakshas is here, he is very confused, as in he doesn't understand where he is or what's going on, which means that this was not a plan of Rakshas to begin with. This was not something set in motion that was supposed to happen during the Kurulatai, like Rakshas was waiting in the wings, waiting for the perfect moment, which is something that Rakshas does. You know, he's one of those characters that's a little bit more covert. He's a little bit more of a sneaky character that waits for the perfect moment to strike. But in this particular case, it seems as though he was kind of just birthed into this situation, which leads to a whole variety of questions of what could be going on here. He thinks and remembers back to the last thing that he can remember, and that's getting shot in the face with a goddamn rocket launcher that my boy Rickert made. And I don't know if the translation is 100% correct here, but he does think to himself, I died. So what the hell does that mean? Now, there are things that happen a little bit further in this chapter that could allude to it, but the ramifications of what this could mean are potentially the scariest thing that you could imagine in Berserk. But before we get to that, Rakshas just looks around. He doesn't know what's going on, but he does recognize Salat. And he's like, you motherfucker, you were one of the guys that was the cause of my death. I was supposed to kill you. So that, on top of a bunch of other Kushan warriors just immediately going to attack him, Rakshas is like, all right, you know what? I don't know why I'm alive, but fuck it. All you guys are going to die. So he just starts attacking everybody. Daiba talks about how Salat had some of his soldiers disguised during the meeting because they sensed something was going to go wrong. They sensed something weird was going to happen. So they were prepared. We see some of the bodybuilder Bakiraka, which I mentioned in the last chapter, missing those guys, so that was cool. But then there seems to be this big wave of astral energy that kind of affects everybody in the room, particularly Daiba, who can really sense this stuff because he's very sensitive to it, being a magic user. And he wonders what the prana could be. We see the shot outside of this swirling tornado over the castle here and the dark blackened sky. So something really bad is about to happen. Then it cuts to the streets of the Kushan Empire, and we see this kind of black, disgusting goo seeping up from the ground, and spawning out of it are these creatures that they are called trolls later on in the manga, but although they are very reminiscent to the trolls that we've seen before, they look very different. I was thinking they might be a different creature, like maybe a goblin or a gremlin, or hey, maybe even a critter. But apparently they are trolls, just different versions of trolls. What I also think would be interesting is if this is how the Kushan specifically imagine trolls, since all the astral creatures kind of are spawned from humanity's fears. So this just like a personal theory. It would be really awesome if the trolls' physiology and the way that they look varied depending on, you know, the kind of culmination of that particular area's fears, if that makes any sense at all. I don't know. That's probably not the case, but regardless, these creatures look awesome. I think they're drawn very, very well. Very, very cool creatures. They start wreaking havoc as trolls do. We got Farnese here, who is, of course, kind of trying to go into action because she knows that Shurikei is still trapped within the astral world or Guts' mind or a combination of the two. And this is the prime direction for her character to go because of all of the development that she's gone through. She seriously has probably the most amount of character development other than Guts himself throughout the entire manga, so I do think it is her time to shine, as much as I don't want to see anything bad happen to Shurikei. I think that Farnese, you know, more than enough has reached that point where she should be the one doing the magical stuff for sure. Serpico comes in, saves her from some trolls, and we haven't seen Serpico really do much action at all in I don't even know how long. It's been a long time, particularly in our real time. Dude, I don't even know how many years it's been since Serpico actually took out his sword and did something, but hey, he took out his sword and he did something. Awesome. But here's the really interesting part. Farnese seems to believe that these trolls are being manifested from the Qliphoth dimension, which is a dimension that we know very well, that we saw back in the early days of the Millennium Empire arc, where we met Slan, who formed herself out of a pile of troll guts and was able to manifest trolls and ogres and essentially all the kind of creatures that she wanted to out of this, you know, really disturbing dimension. Also important to note, Schnaz is also from the Qliphoth dimension. We can't talk about Schnaz too long or else he'll catch on to me and kill me for like the fourth time. I don't know. Dude, he keeps killing me and resurrecting me. And speaking of that, the next page shows Daiba, and he says that this is beyond the abilities of a dumb apostle. I don't think Rakshas is dumb, but I get what he's saying here. To summon the mass amount of demons of this magnitude. Now, here is the mind-blowing part. So, okay, yes, we know that trolls and other monsters can be manifested from the Qliphoth dimension because we've seen it happen before. But when we saw it before, it was happening due to the power of Slan, and she seemed to be able to birth as many of them as she wanted. Now, I don't know where this story is going, and I don't know how soon they plan to wrap things up, but are they implying that these creatures are manifesting now, and Qliphoth is merging with this area of the physical world? Because I assume now that the astral and physical worlds are merged that you probably could just pull up this dimension if you were powerful enough. Are they implying that Slan is nearby? Or one of the other God Hand members? Although it would seem to be that Slan would be the most likely choice since we've already associated her with Qliphoth before. But what the fuck does that mean? And here's the thing with Rakshas is, if they are implying that Rakshas did die when he was blown up by the rocket launcher, which would have made sense for him to die there, are they implying that Rakshas, like the trolls here, have been, I guess, manifested or resurrected from the hell dimension? But the strange thing about that is that the monsters are all created based upon the fears of mankind within our subconscious, right? Whereas Rakshas, as an apostle, means that he was once human. So you would imagine that if Rakshas died, he would fall into the abyss, fall into hell, and then, you know, whatever was left of his soul would just be torn apart in misery forever. To bring him back would imply that you have the ability to bring somebody's essence, somebody's soul back as well, or at least it feels like you would have to have that ability. So that would be incredibly powerful, incredibly OP. And it would also set a precedence that any apostle that died could be brought back. Does that mean if the God Hand all kind of convened together, like they could pull up, you know, the Count or the Snake Baron or any of the other apostles that Guts and company have killed over the years? I don't know, but that seems like it would be a little bit too far. I mean, it's also possible that Rakshas didn't actually die. He just sort of got blown to bits and didn't really realize what was going on until he remanifested here. Maybe this was like the first time he was able to reform himself, and maybe it's the doing of Griffith or another God Hand member that put him here in this location. I don't know, but something very strange about the idea of all these trolls being able to be pulled up from that dimension at the same time of Rakshas reforming himself and believing that he has died, and now all of a sudden has remanifested in this location. It just seems like those two things being shown to us at the same time in the same chapter would imply that it has something to do with the same kind of power. Anyway, we get some shots of the other characters. Rickert starts fighting back. We see Isidro. Morta is here. Some people said, like, why didn't you talk about Morta in the last chapter? I don't know what you're talking about. Like, why would I talk about Morta specifically over any other character? I don't know. Anyway, the elephants start freaking out. Everything seems to be going to hell. And then eventually Rakshas is just like, all right, this will do. Like, he singles out Salat, and it's time for their rematch. They go at each other. We get this really cool image of them attacking one another. And then as Rakshas is saying this will do, we get a shot of Guts again, who once again seems like he is exhausted and out of commission. At the end of the last chapter, it seemed like he was ramping up with, you know, kind of that rage and pain of the brand enacting itself once again. But here it seems like he just wasn't able to muster up the strength and kind of fell back once again. I know they're building some more stuff up with Guts, and, you know, we continuously see him at the end of every single chapter, so it seems to imply that they're trying to remind us, don't worry, like, we'll get back to Guts eventually. There's just some things that need to happen first. But this implication that we could be getting a God Hand member reveal here is pretty insane. Now, it's not explicitly stated or anything, but given the context clues that we have, it would seem likely. Also, since the Astroworld merger, we have not seen one sign of any of the God Hand. You know, there was the big finale in Volume 34, the end of the Millennium Empire arc, and each God Hand member got a dedicated splash page in the manga, but since then, we've had nothing. And it's been theorized that maybe the God Hand aren't here yet because they live in some of the deepest realms of the astral world, and maybe that's not on Earth yet. Obviously, the Abyss isn't on Earth, you know, because we haven't seen it or felt it, and you would imagine it would be pretty gigantic. So do the God Hands still have to manifest themselves using other things like before? Like before, Slan had to use the troll guts to create a body for herself, you know, or Conrad had to use the rats to create a body for himself. So are they going to have to still do that? Will they be able to be there in their full forms? I don't honestly know. So as of right now, I guess we'll just have to wait and see where it goes, as we usually do. Unfortunately, there is not an announcement of when the next chapter will be, so who knows? You know, we were lucky to get 2 in a row after 2 weeks, but now at this point, it's anybody's guess. I would say it's not likely we would get another one before the end of the year, but you never know. Until that point, leave all your thoughts, theories, comments, and opinions about what you think is happening or what you think is going to happen. Was Rakshas really revived? Is Slan or another God Hand on their way? And how do you think this situation is going to play out? We have Rakshas versus Salat round 2. We have Farnese probably going to create a magical barrier or try to do something all on her own. And then, of course, we still have Shurke trapped within Guts' mind with him. We have Roderick being a badass, and we have Morta. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think down below. Thanks, as always, for watching these reviews. I deeply appreciate it. Please give the video a thumbs up and a comment to help it out in the algorithm. And if you want to support the channel on a deeper level, I do have Patreon channel membership and all the social media links where you can follow me in the description. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll talk to you later.